This is the walkthrough video for PCTC question 2023, round 1, senior question 9, grid sum. So we're given this massive grid, and we're also given a row and a column, and we want to take in, we want to sum all of the numbers in that row and also in that column, and output the answer. Okay, so this question is actually a bit complicated, but we'll tackle it step by step, and it should be perfectly doable. So the first input is, what is the first input? It's the row number. Yeah, I think it's, yeah, row. So row equals int input, col equals int input. Now let's take it now a full grid. So let's create an empty list, and then 10 times we're going to take in a row. We couldn't call it a row. We're going to take in new row. I don't know what should we call it. Let's call it A. Let's call it A. We're going to take in our row, and that's just going to be a string of numbers. But as we'll see later, there's a way more efficient way to do this problem, and a pretty easy way to do this problem actually. But to do it this way, we don't want a string of numbers, we want a list of numbers. And so to convert that into a list, let's do int num for num in input. And this list comprehension, it should basically just take in our inputted row, for example, this row, and it should convert that string, that massive number string thing, into a list of 10 digits, of 10 single digit numbers, and more importantly, integers that we can actually process. And then we want to add that to grid. So grid.append A. And so by the end of this for loop, we have a grid which is just all 10 of these rows, each of 10 numbers, integers, which we can process. Now we want to actually calculate the total of everything. So let's create a total variable. Let's just set that to 0 to begin with. And now I think the easier bit to do first is just to total all rows. And you'll see why this is very easy soon. But what row do we want to use? Well, we're told in the question that this is not 0 indexed. So the row and the column number we're given are not 0 indexed. But Python obviously likes 0 indexing because Python always starts counting at 0 in a list. So actually all the way up here on line 1 and 2, let's 0 index or make our inputs 0 index friendly. And that way we can kind of just ignore this problem for the rest of the code because we've already dealt with it on lines 1 and 2. Okay, so as I said, we're going to deal with the row first. And to get the total sum of all the digits in the row, we can just leverage sum, the Python command. And so we can go grid and row. And this is all we need to do, right? This is the code that we need to calculate the sum of all of these digits. And so we can just add that to total. And this is why I was so adamant on inputting our thing as a list of digits as opposed to a string, because it means we can just use the sum command, which makes this super duper easy. But then you may be saying, how is this easy? Because now we have to deal with the columns, and the columns is just harder to deal with because we can't just sum a quick and simple list. And you can, for example, create your own list of all of the numbers in this column by using some logic, blah, blah, blah. But if you can save yourself from actually using your brain and thinking, then you might as well do that. And we're going to do that. So to do that, we're going to transpose. So transpose spelled like that. And we're going to transpose our grid. But to transpose it, we just do this. I'm not going to explain how this works. If you want, you can try and figure this out yourself. But otherwise, you can just kind of memorize this command. And what this will do is it will take your grid and it will swap the rows and columns. And so if you swap the rows and columns over, it means all of a sudden, this column, which is like the 5, 7, 6, 2, 7, whatever, this column is now a row. And therefore, we can just apply this very basic code from line 12 and copy paste it down here. And instead of putting row, let's just put column, because that's going to be the index that we want. And that's all we need to do. And like we haven't really used our brain at all. We've just transposed it. We've just swapped the rows and columns and then copy pasted our code or our line of code from the row and just swapped out the index to make sure it's the correct index. And that's pretty much all we need to do. Now we can just print total. However, you may notice a problem. Again, this might be a theme of these videos. This might be a theme of the videos. You may notice a problem. And the problem in this case is that we've counted 6 twice. We've counted 6 in the row and we've counted 6 in the column. And so we need to remove that 6. Obviously, we don't know what the number actually is. And so we can't just say total minus equals 6. But what we can say total minus equal grid, and then we want to reference that number. And what is that number equal to? Well, because we swapped the rows and columns, it's not going to be equal to row column. It's going to be equal to column row, just like that. And now we should be able to submit the code and hopefully get 5 out of 5. That seems promising. Yep, nice. I mean, this problem, I guess, it tests your implementation because it's not too difficult of a problem. But if you implement it well, then it becomes super duper easy. And the key thing to implementing it well is this idea of just using sum to do all of your addition for you, and then also to use this idea of transposing something, which means you can just reuse your row code for your column. And this is an idea that appears quite frequently. If you watch some of my round 2 videos, you'll probably have come across this before. And of course, the final thing to note is just to be very careful of something like this, because you could very well be bamboozled by this for quite a while if you don't recognize that you need to remove that 6.